And just like that, we're back. That was the name of my newsletter today to my staff. Hi, everybody. Angie and Carrie here tonight to talk to you about back to school, because you know what today was, Carrie? Today was the first day back from my school system.
Yep.
And yesterday, first day back for your kiddo.
Yep, that's
and
right. First
we were
day
just
back.
reflecting on
Summer is
those.
over.
Yep, summer is over. Wow, wow. That is the hard part for me anyway. The hard part is accepting that. Although today it poured rain all morning. And so we were standing out there watching the buses come in. So I work in central office. So my team, a couple of people from my team were going around to the buildings. We have a new person on staff, so we were taking her around to show her. You know, this is our morning routine. So we saw the buses and the parents come in one of our buildings, and then we went around to the other 3 buildings to welcome and poke our heads into the classrooms and see the kids and say hi and welcome back. And some of them looked pretty sleepy. You know, couple of, in one of the schools, one little kiddo was like, I'm not having this. And I'm like, they're tired. And I know that back to school routine.
It's hard. It takes a lot out of them.
Really hard, especially if your kids haven't had to have a bedtime because you're home with them during the day, or,
right.
You know, and getting them back in that routine, or maybe your work hours are a little bit different. But
yeah, my daughter started high school. We started moving her bedtime back. I don't know, like last week, because she's been free and loose with her bedtime, and it doesn't matter. Like, she's getting enough sleep because she's still sleeping like probably 10, 11 hours. It's just that she's been going to bed at like 11 and sleeping till 11, which whatever, it's summer, right? But now you're a teenager, right? She's a night owl anyway. She always has been. So she likes doing things at night, but now, you know, gotta move that back because she's getting up at 6.
Well, one of the things that we really liked as teachers was when we had those, when we start the week before Labor Day. So then we have 3 days, and then next week will be a 4-day week. And then the following week will be a 5-day week. And that really helps. I think it helps our kids develop the stamina, and the staff too.
Yeah.
Staff are tired.
Well, and the parents who need to drive their kids to school. I mean, I was also free and loose with my bedtime and wake up time. And now I'm getting up at 5 to make sure I do everything I need to do before I leave.
I wonder if it's a little more common now that we have more parents maybe working from home. So they're either getting their kids to school
more common to drive them, you mean? Well, that's what I used to. Yeah, I used to drive her to school and then come home. Well, currently I am now. I'm changing jobs, so in a couple of weeks I'll be dropping her off and going to work. But right now I'm dropping her off and coming back. But I still need to get up early to make sure that I'm getting all the stuff in that I want to get in before she goes, because when I come back, I have a whole other list of things that I need to do. So I don't want to like waste my time doing that when I come back. So plus I need to get myself ready to make sure that I can get to work on time. Right. So, you know, getting up at 5 is what I have decided, because I want to make sure I get my morning routine in.
Changes afoot.
Yes, so, exactly.
We thought we'd talk to y'all about going back to school and getting back into the routine and some of the challenges. And as we were prepping for this episode, we were thinking, or this live, we were starting to think of all the stories of all the things that parents and kids really have to adjust to when the school year starts. I had to adjust to the morning routine, getting the kids up and getting myself and them so for me, I was going to work and they had to come with me. Once my son graduated high school, because we didn't have a high school in our town, so I had to drive him all the way to school. But the girls weren't in school. I think his senior year, my oldest daughter went to kindergarten. So that we'll talk about that year, another in terms of what I did driving back and forth. But so I had my kids at school with me. So their first day of school was my first day of school. So, you know, with kids. So I think that alleviated some of the first day.
I would have loved that.
Yeah, that makes it hard. So Carrie was thinking about, what are some of the worries and anxieties that parents have on that first day of school? And then we just started thinking about the stories and the
All the
challenges of
different
that
things.
time. So yeah.
Yeah.
So when you think back to when your kiddos were young.
Yeah. Yeah. There was, well, I have many stories, but well, I'll start off by saying it took me a long time to figure out that I needed to get up before the kids to make sure that I started my day off right. Because I would get up sort of with them, and then the whole morning was just rushed and chaotic. And I mean, I made so many, like, I did so many things that I wouldn't do now, like making their lunches in the morning instead of the night before. Like, I tried to do everything like in the morning, and I also didn't get up early. So it just created this whole, chaotic, crazy scene where you're trying to get, kind of like a sitcom, you're trying to get out the door. Right? You gotta go, get your backpack, fill it out, get your shoes on, get your coat, all that stuff.
And wouldn't you say that that even if it's just 5 minutes, that 5 minutes in the morning where you're just taking care of yourself, how that helps you get into that mindset of, okay, I can think a little bit more clearly. I've woken up, I've taken care of some of my essential needs, and now I'm better prepared to take care of them.
Like getting up and jumping right into the day with all the, I mean, when your kids are little, it's like when they're up, it's not like when they're teens and they're up and it takes them an hour to like get out of that groggy state. When they're little,
and you're going in there and saying, get up 5,000 times. Oh yeah.
Right, exactly. But yeah, I mean, when they're little, they get up and they're like up. So it's like, you're not. And so if you get up with them, it's just, it feels harsh on your system, and it's hard to get out of that. It just, it's chaotic outside and it feels chaotic inside. And for me, that was, it just contributed to the anxiety piece of it. Right. Cause then I was like, you got to hurry up and do this and hurry up and do that. Even if I wasn't saying hurry up, that was my energy, like hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. Right. And that's just not, it's not good for me. It's not good for them. It doesn't start them off right. Right. It's just, it took me a long time to figure that out. So once I did, the mornings were much smoother. I don't know why it took me so long to figure that out, but
what if it just took you the amount of time that it needed to take?
Yeah.
Right. It just, you didn't have a set of moms that you could listen to that could maybe give you some advice or help you think through something that, like what we're hoping our moms.
I just kept thinking that today will be different. Today will be different. Today will be different. And when it wasn't different, I would be like, why can't I do this? Why am I doing this wrong? Like, how, how can I do this better? Like, why am I doing this wrong? Why is this all going wrong? And all, it just, all these thoughts in my head. But the
pile on effect is what I call it, right?
Yeah, right.
Just
yeah,
it is on board.
Yeah. And like these thoughts come and you're not super conscious of them, but they're there. And then it's like, you're feeling all these certain things based on what you're thinking. So, I was feeling, well, first I was like, today's going to be different, but it wasn't like a hopeful feeling. It was more like an anxious feeling because I was waiting for the thing to go wrong. Like I was just always trying to be one step ahead of that thing. And that thing would inevitably happen, and then everything would fall apart. And then I would blame myself, and it's all my fault, and I'm terrible, and all this stuff. So that's how our mornings were for a while. It wasn't fun. It wasn't fun. But I did figure that out. So now everything is much smoother. And now I think I need to make sure that I give myself enough time and I'm not rushing, so the energy in the house doesn't feel like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's much calmer, So,
and most days you can probably pull that off, right? Now that you have
yeah,
practiced that. And I mean, there's no doubt that as the kids get older, it does get easier in some ways. If you have a kid that doesn't like to put themselves to sleep at night, getting them out of bed, that was always the problem with my son when he
yeah,
was in high school. And then I was getting the two little kids ready to go to daycare so that we could all go out the door. That was challenging. But there are some certain things that as they get a little bit older, you really use that time getting out the door to really help them develop some responsibility. And
right.
so
Right.
thinking about the first day of school, like what were some of those things that really worried you as the mom? Oh no, they're going back to
So
school and
many things.
oh no.
So, yeah. Well, so, all right. So, when my oldest was little, she was the only one in school. So, everything that happened with school for her was the first time for me. And I was very, I was very protective of her. I learned to let go with my second, but with her, I was very protective and it lasted for a while. So I needed, in my mind, I needed to know where she was, who she was with, what she was doing, right? So her going to school and then me not having access to her or, being able to like peek into her day or talk to her teacher, right? Because in preschool, it's only three in our town. It's only 3 days. She didn't go to daycare. She went to preschool when she was 3 and 4, and it was 3 days a week, and it was half days. And part of that was getting like a rundown of the day from the teacher every day. So even though she wasn't in my sights, it was only for a few hours, and then I would, get my fix of hearing about what she did during the day.
Right.
Then
Right.
I sent her to regular school, right? Kindergarten, first grade. She's gone all day. I don't know what she's doing. I have no insight from the teacher. So I was like constantly emailing the teacher, like, she came home and she did this. What happened in school? Because I was like, what happened? What happened? What happened? And my thought was like, I needed to know what she was doing at all times so I could protect her. I needed to feel like I was controlling the situation somehow so I could protect her. And I know that, or probably a lot of moms have that. I feel like I was kind of on the extreme of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it really, I mean, to the point where it was distracting to me during the day, And then when I knew the bus was supposed to be coming, I would get very anxious about, about the bus coming. Like, when is it coming? When is it coming? It's late. Why is it late? It's supposed to be here 5 minutes ago. What happened? Where is it? So
Right. Right.
I was very like antsy about that stuff. And it was all because I had the thought that I needed to know what she was doing at all times, or else I couldn't keep her safe.
So what do you think, like, when you think about that? So the thought was, I need to know what she's doing at all times so I can keep her safe.
Mm-hmm.
Was there something even further?
I didn't
That?
trust. I didn't trust. I didn't trust the
Mm-hmm.
school. I didn't trust the teachers. I didn't trust the bus driver. I mean, I barely trusted my mother and mother-in-law to take care of her. like, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't want anybody taking care of my kids but me. And then I was forced to put her in school. That's how I felt about it. And now all these strangers are taking care of my kid. And it was very upsetting to me, and irrationally so. But it was very upsetting, and that feeling was real, and it was physical. Like,
you say irrationally so, but did you know that it was irrational at the time, or was this just your reality? This is how you're responding to not being able to go to school with your kid.
Logically, I knew that nothing was going to happen to her. Our elementary school is literally a minute from our house. I could walk to it if I had to. It would be a 10-minute walk. So, and I knew the nurse there is our neighbor. So, like, I would get calls from her sometimes. Like, Abigail's here and she needs, so logically, if I really thought about it, I did know, but I didn't really let myself think about it logically. I just let all the panic and fear and anxiety take over my thoughts. And it wasn't like I had specific thoughts like, this teacher is going to do this terrible thing to her. It wasn't like that. It was just sort of this like amorphous danger that she was in, because she wasn't in my vision. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly.
So that took a while. And so then if anything happened that was negative in any way, I just lost it. I just went wild. Because I was like, there's the proof. They can't keep her safe, right? They can't, and I would just be like, oh my God. I wasn't shy about making my feelings known. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Would you, hindsight's 2020, right? Would you do it differently now?
I would probably breathe. I would breathe now. Yeah. I would breathe now, and I would identify exactly what I was thinking, instead of letting it be like this blurry thing off in the distance that looks dangerous, but I don't really know what it is. I would really try to identify and probably walk myself through the logic, like if anything happened, they would call me, if something happens with her, with one of the kids, that's just how she learns how to, be in a group. And it's not always going to be positive, and she's not always going to be happy, and that's okay. And like, those are the things that I would tell myself now, but I didn't have any of that then. Right. I just had me, which was not a good idea.
That affair was just, not working in your favor for sure.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, and the things that I'm seeing come through about what moms are worried about with their kids, I feel like it falls into 4 categories. It's about friends. It's about, academic, and it doesn't even matter what age, right? It's right. This goes across all the ages. So friends, academics, the scheduling, like we talked about, like getting out the door, or if you have older kids and now they're in sports and extracurriculars and all that stuff.
Are they going to get to where they need to go?
Yeah, right. Dealing with sick kids and having a job, like all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And then just the transition itself, the transition of going from well, if you've had kids in school, the transition of summer to back to school, if you haven't had kids in school, right, your kid going to school for the first time is a big transition. If you're, if your elementary school kid is going into middle school, your middle school kid is going into high school, your high school kid is getting ready to go to college or is in college now, like all of those transitions, we all have thoughts about all of those different things. And
a lot of times those thoughts are create fear, right? Create fear, a sense of no control. What happens nowadays that I've noticed is that a lot of rec programs or school camps and stuff are closed the week or 2 weeks in August before school starts. So not only are you going from the transition from summer and camps and whatever you had your kiddos doing, you had these last 2 weeks where you scrambled together to either, or you took time off so that you were home with them, or they did, they were staying with grandma, or maybe you had, a sitter or something that they could, if they need that. And then you're getting them back into the routine of just having a routine. So, so all those things, and the anxiety the unknown that can be provoked by the whole thing. And I would just, I'm hoping what our moms hear is that just give yourself a pat on the back. You're showing up. You're thinking about it. Give yourself some grace. You're gonna get it wrong, no doubt about it. But kids are pretty resilient.
They are,
and
that's what I have learned too. Right? They're resilient. They will bounce back, and they know when you're trying.
They do.
They really do. So it's for me, that was helpful because it helped me sort of calm down that every little thing that I was doing was ruining them for life. It's like,
or every little thing. It sounds like everything, little thing you weren't doing was ruining them for lives too.
Yeah, right. Yeah, everything we do ruins their lives. At least that's what we tell
ourselves. Everything you do or don't do, you're just, it's not going to happen, right?
So, like, what are some of the things that you worried about with your kids in school?
So I remember when we moved to the town that we live in now, my son had to switch schools. He had to go, he ended up going to 8th grade here. And man, moving when you're 13 is hard, and changing schools when, he'd always been at the same school before that. So I remember walking down the hallway and seeing him looking in one of the classrooms, and he was just in there, and he was, I watched him for a little bit, and he was trying to make a joke or something. And I'm like, I just want them to like him. Like I wanted for him, always wanted a, somebody to see him for who he was and appreciate him and acknowledge what a good kid he was. Still is, now that he's an adult. But I just wanted that for him. And he wasn't the best student. He wasn't into it. He wasn't into school. I think I said that in the previous, when I was talking about my kids, but I really wanted him to be seen. And that didn't always happen. And that was, I worried about that. I'm like, I always have had a soft spot myself for the kids that, don't fit the school mold. And they might act out or not. I said I always had a heart for the naughty, nice kids. They're naughty. And I taught middle school, so they can be really naughty. But anyway, that's a memory that sticks in my mind about really wanting him to fit in. That friend stuff, especially when you change schools, like when they're going off in my town, the kids go off to high school, and they could be at a high school where they haven't met anybody. None of their classmates go to that high school. Now in both my daughter's cases, they went to high school. My oldest daughter, like half her class from our little school went to that high school. So she had people built in, like that she knew her since they were, in kindergarten, but not knowing who their friends are going to be. Like that happens, right? When your kids start getting old enough to go on play dates, and you don't call it play dates when they're 13, but you go to a friend's house and you're like, I don't know that friend. And when they were in elementary school, it was totally acceptable to call the parent. But I even did that once they were freshmen, or like, I didn't know the parent. I wanted to know what the situation was. So, you feel weird, like, oh, am I supposed to? I don't know this parent. So, and of course, in those days, I mean, when my son was in high school, we didn't have a cell phone. He didn't have a cell phone. So, now, my girls had cell phones. So it makes you have a sense of safety a little bit more. I think because first of all, you have a location on their phone, and then they're just a text away. Like, how you doing? You will check in with me. I will call, and I want to talk to the mom or the dad that are home. Tell me the adult. So, that kind of thing. So really, it was that fitting in and the friends piece. The academics probably should have been more important to me, but I figure that generally takes care of itself. I have a different thought about academics and people and the kids finding their way, but I don't know if I should admit that as a teacher, as an educator. Is that a good thing? But
no, I think I agree with you. I think that the friend, we were a lot more worried about the friend thing and the social thing than academics, and we even said, to ourselves, but my husband and I would say, even if they got C's, but they're happy and they're social and all that stuff, that's fine. It's because learning how to make friends and be in a group and all those things it's hard, but it's important, and it's almost, I would say, as important, if not even a little more important than the academic piece of it, because like you said, that kind of takes care of itself.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it does. And school was easy for me academically. I had no problems with that, but I graduated and didn't know who I was or what I wanted to do. So it took me 12 years to graduate from college. And those 12 years were like a blessing, because then I went into a field that I really was passionate about. And even now I continue to enjoy most parts of my job, not all of it, as Carrie knows. But there is something about, giving kids time to figure that out. And so that's a whole other episode, right? Helping them transition into adulthood. But the school years, that was the biggest thing for me, for sure. And then if there was problems with behavior, or the kids brought something to school they shouldn't have, that they found in the back, like, I was like, you know what? If you're going to mess up at school, yes, I want to know about it, and we'll talk about it at home. There'll be a consequence at home, but I wanted them to have to be accountable for their behavior. And, didn't really have any problems when they were in elementary age, but, and Jacob might have had a time or two that it was a challenge. But once they were in high school, it was like, you mess up, you're going to have to figure out how to unmiss it.
So, right. Yeah. Giving them that responsibility, but learning to let go and do that, letting them have that responsibility. I mean, that also creates all sorts of thoughts in your brain. Like, is it too soon? Am I being too hard on them? Is it
exactly?
Are they actually going to learn from this? What if they don't learn from this? And then, then you go way into the future, and it's just, it's hard to not do that as a mom. But I feel like we could talk about these topics forever. We should
Forever.
probably do a webinar on this and really deep dive into how your thoughts as a mom, it keeps going out, so hopefully people can still hear us, but how your thoughts as a mom, lead to you feeling a certain way, and that leads to you acting and certain things that you're doing, right? So anyway, I feel like we should do a webinar on this and really deep dive into all these anxieties.
Right. The anxiety can lie to you, first of all, and tell you that there's nothing you can do about it because it's the law. I have to send my kids to school, right? And so then that fear that is generated, that there are some things that you want. I would have loved this work when I had school age kids.
Yeah,
I would have loved this work to help me navigate that. And I mean, whole other list about going back to school and did I get the right backpack? How about the shoes? Was my kid going to fit in? Or does my kid have what they need to be academically successful? And what if my kid isn't progressing like I think they should?
Right.
And my kids, I would various ones would take some instruction from me, and the other ones, it was like, nope, nope, mom, you're home, you're the mom, you're not my teacher. So that, like, how do we just now when homework starts, and the pressure,
that's a whole nother thing.
That's a whole podcast in itself. I know a lot of school systems have moved away from homework. But if that's a nightmare for you, that's certainly.
We're lucky with homework. When my kids were younger, it was a little more of an issue. But as they've grown, they have really taken it on themselves. And my oldest is in college now, but even when she wasn't, I took the stance once I felt like they were old enough of, I'm not monitoring your homework. If you don't do it, you're the one who's going to get in trouble, not me. So they've actually been pretty good about that. And they usually, they get it done. And if they don't, it's usually some extenuating circumstance. So in that way, we're pretty lucky. But when they were younger, it was a little more dicey.
Right. Well, also, I think part of that is you didn't know what you didn't know, right? As your kids go up through the system, you learn that there are certain things that would have upset you a few years ago, but now you're like, no, I know how this goes.
I mean, and for me, like the homework when they were younger, and it was more my oldest than my youngest, but I just had this idea in my head of what homework should look like, how she does homework.
Right.
And she didn't do it that way, like she would want to listen to something. And I would be like, no, you can't listen to something when you're doing your homework, right? And it would just these sort of arbitrary rules that I put into place based on how I was raised, and so it didn't fit for her. And I kept making it about her rather than making it about, my thoughts about it. It was, I had this idea that I was right and she was wrong. And so no matter what she said or what she suggested or what she was trying to tell me, my thought was, I'm right and you're wrong. And so it just shut everything down, and I didn't listen. I didn't process what she was telling me, and if I had done that sooner, it would have been smoother. But like you said, you don't know what you don't know. Like, I didn't know, I thought that was the best course of action. And for us, I learned that it wasn't, but I didn't know what I didn't know.
So if if first day of school was not necessarily a great thing, and school being back in session for your kids, for the moms out there, if this is not exactly the best time of year for you, what are some final words that you think might be helpful for them?
I would say, just if you're feeling anxious or some sort of negative, even sadness, right? If your kids are going to college and you're having some sadness about that, but sadness, frustration, maybe you're feeling frustration, just any of those kinds of emotions, I would say really think about what your thoughts are. Like, what exactly are you anxious about? What happened? And what is your thought about what happened? Like, what exactly is your thought about why you're anxious? There's a thought in there somewhere. And it's when we don't slow down to try to identify that, then we just kind of let the anxiety and the frustration and the sadness kind of run rampant. And we don't really process it through. We're just letting it spin in there like a tornado, and it just makes us miserable.
Yeah, sort of. I think what you're talking about is give yourself some grace. Give yourself a moment.
Just breathe.
To just see.
Yes.
Now that most things are going to take care of themselves. So,
right.
And just be gentle and kind with yourself.
That's right. So, just take care of yourself, moms.
So you can take care of them.
That's right. All right. I think 36 minutes. We're trying to make this as close to 30 minutes as we can because we know people don't have a ton of time. But so far, we haven't been super great at that. But today, we're better. 36 minutes. So
36 minutes.
Yeah. All right.
Well, thank y'all for
being
end it here tonight.
If you're not part of our Facebook group, go to Mom's Love on Facebook and join our Facebook group. We'll have a link in here for you to click so you can join it. We have these lives every other Wednesday. There's always a new topic. We're going to have guests. We're going to be creating webinars. We have some free resources for you that are going to be coming out soon. So look for that. We'll announce that when those are ready. So yes, we have a lot of good things in the pipeline. So come join us, see what we're doing. We would love to have you.
Love to have you here.
All right.
All right, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.